Professional cyclists only have a few chances each season to win. Victory brings contract renewals, bonuses, personal sponsorships, and future leadership roles. When a moto slipstream helps one rider escape and alters the outcome of the race, those guys who didn't get into moto slipstream, those guys left behind, they lose a career-defining opportunity, a chance to win fairly. The cost isn't just a missing €5,500 from first to second. It's the story that never gets written for these riders. Think about this. If you could pay a 200 Swiss franc fine, that's the penalty for drafting behind a vehicle in a one-day race, according to the UCI rule 4.7, and potentially win €11,000 plus lifelong prestige. Would you take the risk? Of course you take that risk. But this happens automatically for riders. Many riders, they don't consciously run through a cost-benefit analysis when they attack or they come back to the bunch using moto assistance. The current sanctions, like 200 Swiss francs for riders and 500 Swiss francs for drivers, plus time penalties, which are totally pointless in one-day races. The time penalties range from 20 seconds to 5 minutes. But all these penalties, they're tiny compared to what's at stake. That misalignment of incentives, of penalties versus upside, that misalignment, it encourages opportunistic drafting. Do you remember when Arnaud Démare crashed on the Cipressa climb at Milan-San Remo? What was that, back in 2016, I think? He fought his way back to the bunch under mechanical assistance, as far as I'm concerned. Afterwards, he totally shrugged off these accusations, saying that riders have often and always profited from the draft of cars because they block the wind and this isn't forbidden. Although he denied holding onto the car, he later uploaded his Strava file, which caused a lot of controversy. His Strava file shows that he closed, I think it was a 40-second gap. Now, this is solo. To close a 40-second gap solo while the racing was full gas at the front of Milan-San Remo in the finale. Maybe he had the legs of his life, but I'm skeptical. Now, that example underscores the calculation. With small fines and weak enforcement, drafting behind cars and motorbikes, it can be the difference between dropping out and winning a monument. That's a temptation that very few riders are going to be able to resist. Commissars, for their part, commissars are race referees, if you don't know. They ride in the car, they watch on screens, and they listen on the radio. They have to monitor road traffic, safety in the race, judge on interpreting all the rules and applying all the rules around race fairness simultaneously. So determining whether a motorbike gave a meaningful draft at 30 metres or 20 metres for a few seconds, it's very difficult. TV directors, they want the perfect shot. They want the shot of Pogacar and Vingegaard's face. They want the race leader's face. So they instruct moto drivers to stay as close as possible without obstructing. Drivers are freelancers who move up and down the convoy to get the best possible shots and the best angles. Because there's no automatic distance monitoring, enforcement depends on the judgment of officials who are often dealing with bigger safety issues as the race is progressing, especially as it's coming into the finish. And as a result, slipstream infractions are very, very rarely punished. Broadcast demands have exploded in the last few years. You look at how many legacy TV channels are showing it, and then you add in social media. Each Grand Tour stage now has multiple camera bikes. It has photographer bikes. It has neutral service bikes, race marshals, and now VIP motos. Now, without them, we have no live coverage. We have no sport, really. These are the guys who fund the sport. We have no on-bike audio. We have no slow motion shots for the highlight reels. The sport is funded by sponsors who crave exposure. The TV product, it's non-negotiable. That said, there's a growing argument that technology like fixed cameras on motorhomes, drones, helicopter-based cameras, it could reduce the need for so many vehicles. Fewer motorbikes would lower both the safety risk and the aerodynamic influence of these motorbikes on the race. Dr. Fred Grappe, he's the performance director at Groupama FDJ, and he had this idea of a free zone. And this is a zone around riders where no motor vehicle is allowed to remain for more than a few seconds. Research suggests that beyond 90 metres, the aerodynamic benefit, it becomes negligible. Thus, we could have rules that require motorbikes to stay over 90 metres away from riders, except when they're overtaking. You'd use GPS trackers on the motorbikes, And then the officials could, I don't know, be alerted automatically when somebody got into this zone, and it would tell them to move on or to get a penalty. Not every photographer needs to be on a bike. The Tour de France already uses helicopters, drones, and onboard cameras. Expanding these could allow organisers to reduce the number of motorcycles following breakaways. Drones can follow at higher altitudes without creating that draft. Cable cameras on alpine climbs could provide dramatic shots without any vehicle on the road. There are solutions. The current fines, though, like 200 to 500 Swiss francs, they are not a deterrent for anyone, regardless of what the exchange rate's like, when the upside is a Tour de France stage or a monument win. Penalties need to be increased dramatically, with automatic time penalties where it matters in like Grand Tours, but it only matters for some people. If you're a sprinter, a time penalty doesn't matter, so they need to be tuned into this. Points deductions will matter for riders and teams that benefit from these, so that's a tool they could use. And for drivers, like moto drivers, the threat of losing their accreditation, it would incentivize caution around them. Critically, there needs to be clarity. What distance constitutes drafting? How long can a moto stay in front for? We need transparent guidelines. Enforcement is going to remain arbitrary until there is transparency around these guidelines. As a rider, I know I would draft off motos too. We can't blame riders for this. High performers, these guys are seeking an edge wherever they can get it. High performers are always going to operate right on the edge of the rules. It's up to the officials to determine where those edges are. And probably the craziest aspect of this entire thing is how long this has been going on and how little attention it's been getting. Television coverage of cycling became mainstream in the 60s. And introducing camera bikes and neutral support motos to the convoy happened back then, like early 60s into the 70s. Rules evolved then primarily for safety to ensure that vehicles didn't block riders or cause crashes. Aerodynamic effects really weren't that well understood, and early UCI regulations, they were pretty archaic. They prohibited pushing or pulling riders. So basically anything outside that seemed to be go-go. The first high-profile drafting protest was probably the 1967 World Championships, when the Dutch rider Jan Janssen complained that Eddy Merckx had been sheltered by a press car. The complaint was dismissed. Throughout the 70s and the 80s, commentators did occasionally remark that motorbikes were being a bit too close, but they lacked the scientific evidence to back it or give that statement any credibility. By the early 2000s, however, cycling's aerodynamic boom was in full flow, and this was becoming a serious field that people were looking into now. Engineers began measuring drag in wind tunnels, and pro teams hired aerodynamicists. Research into drafting behind vehicles accelerated after high-profile accidents in the peloton too. In 2017, the UCI introduced a more detailed vehicle protocol, introducing recommended distances for TV bikes. In 2017, the UCI introduced a more detailed vehicle protocol, including recommended distances for TV bikes. Yet by 2019, just 2 years later, academics were already poking holes in this. They were showing that these guidelines were totally toothless. They didn't go far enough, and that the time gains from drafting were way bigger than expected. That was the exact same year that we talked about where Tom Dumoulin highlighted just how bad this was when Primož Roglič got away from him on the world's biggest stage. Outside the sport, doping scandals dominate narratives. I can see it in our YouTube comments. People are always questioning if so-and-so rider is clean. Cycling journalists are obsessed about it, trying to find a link between a soigneur and an old doping investigation and a doctor and a team. It's been going on forever. Fans still ask whether surprise winners are clean, but inside the peloton, riders talk about motorbikes because that's a tangible, measurable advantage affecting today's races. When we focus solely on chemical doping, we miss structural issues that shape the results just as much, if not more. The moto draft is an advantage delivered by event organisers and broadcasters. It's not a rider cheating, it's the environment rewarding whoever happens to be first off the front in the final. And that distinction is important. It means solutions aren't about policing athletes' bodies, but about redesigning how we cover races. If you're a fan who reflectively suspects doping whenever a breakaway sticks, ask yourself, could the camera bike be the biggest factor? Or do you think moto drafts are part of cycling's charm? But imagine for 1 second losing a once-in-a-lifetime stage because you were in the wrong place when the TV motorbike rolled by. Is that what we want racing to be? I know I don't. As fans, we crave the images, the iconic images that the camera motorcycles deliver for us. Like I'm thinking Chris Froome running up Von 2, like phenomenal images. We celebrate those intimate shots of racers grimacing in pain, the sweeping vistas across the Tourmalet. But those same vehicles, they can alter the very performances we're watching. The science shows the slipstream effect is real and it's larger than most of us had assumed. The history shows that riders have protested this for decades, yet the rulebook remains totally toothless. The cost of inaction, it's measured in lost stage wins, reduced prize purses, and endangered careers. If cycling is to remain credible, we have to treat moto drafting with the same seriousness that we reserve for other forms of unfair advantage. That means clear, enforced distances, fewer vehicles, alternative broadcast solutions, meaningful penalties, and cultural change. It also means recognising that outside narratives about doping often distract from this more immediate issue. The conversation inside the sport is moving on. As fans, I think we should too. Roadman, thank you for tuning in to another Roadman Cycling podcast. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like this video, subscribe, share it with a friend in a WhatsApp group, and let me know in the comments down below what deep dive topic we should tackle next. Drop your suggestions down below, and until next time, ride safe.